I'm 45 years old, my wife Glenda is a year younger. We've been married for 25 years, so earlier this year we celebrated our silver anniversary. We had an awesome time on our week-long trip to the Western Caribbean. Our son Alan just turned 25, he got his degree in electrical engineering and married his amazing wife Brenda, who is a delight to be around. Our daughter Elise is a year younger than Alan, she studied music and education and now works as the assistant choir director at our local high school, a job she loves. She recently got married too. Edward and I are super happy together. We don't have any grandkids yet, but we're enjoying our alone time without any rush. Glenda and I have had a great marriage. We've always had each other's backs and taken care of each other's needs. Our love life has slowed down a bit, but we're both cool with it. She used to play Colby Calais' song Bubbly a lot, saying it reflected her feelings for me. She knew how to make me feel loved. We often hang out with our friends Bob and Teresa, whom I've known for a while. Bob and I have been tight since junior high. Glenda and I are the godparents to their 3 kids, and our own kids call them Uncle Bob and Aunt Teresa. Our families are super close and we've gone on tons of vacations together. Glenda is the most beautiful woman in my eyes, with Teresa coming in a close second. But we've always kept things in check. We've danced with each other's husbands, but never crossed any lines. I'd do anything for Bob. So, Teresa and I were living the dream with Glenda until she started feeling sick. She went to the doctor and got referred to an oncologist. Turns out, she has stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which is terminal. The doctor said she probably has about 6 months left, with the first 4 being okay and the last 2 needing palliative care. We were shocked and told our friends Alan and Elise, who came back to help us out. I really wanted to stick around, but Glenda wasn't having it. Bob and Teresa were also pretty bummed, but their support meant a lot to us. Glenda wanted them to take care of me once she was gone and even pushed me to start dating again in the future. I wasn't ready to talk about it, so I just kept quiet. I just wanted to be the best husband I could be until the very end. Glenda didn't want to waste time pitying herself. I suggested she quit her job, but she was insistent on keeping it for consistency. Surprisingly, she started craving more closeness and wanted to. She started trying out new things despite her condition, and our sex life got more exciting. We had some unforgettable experiences together. When we weren't home, we'd hang out with Bob and Teresa, living it up every moment. Hank, how are you feeling about our sex life lately? Yeah, babe, it feels like you're trying to wear me out, but I ain't complaining. Every moment with you is special and unforgettable. That's what I'm aiming for, babe. I won't be around much longer, and I want to make a ton of great memories. Hey Glenda, we've been having a blast lately and I don't want to waste any time just sitting around. I know you feel the same way, Hank. I'm up for anything, whenever you want to do it. I'm so glad you said that, because I need to talk to you about something important. What's on your mind, honey? I love you more than words can say, Hank. You're the best husband a woman could ask for, and I'm grateful for all the good times we've had together. We've been getting pretty close lately, and I want to. Hey Glenda, I just want to make sure you're happy as I'm getting closer to the finish line. I've loved every minute of being with you. You're the best wife I could ask for and I want to keep making memories with you. But all this closeness has got me thinking about trying new things. You mentioned you'd been with other people before we got married, and that's cool. I was a virgin when we tied the knot, and I'm happy I could give you that. But now I'm wondering if you'd be open to helping me explore some new experiences before I kick the bucket. I want to hook up with another guy before it's too late. I don't mean cheating, just one weekend and I'll be good. Would you be cool with that, Hank? I don't know why, but I really need this. Hank was shocked, he didn't see this coming. Babe, I hope this is just a phase and you'll get over it soon, or maybe you're joking. Please tell me you're not serious. I'm dead serious, Hank. I don't have time for games, this is important to me. This is everything to me. Hey, I really want this. Please tell me if you get it and will give it to me, she begged. Hank was feeling overwhelmed, his wife was asking for permission to be with another man. Glenda, I've loved you since the day we met. You're the best wife a guy could ask for. I'd do anything for you, but I can't handle you being with another guy. Before we go any further, who were you thinking of? Were you planning to meet someone new? Of course not, don't be ridiculous. I would never risk getting sick. I've had enough of this. I've been thinking about this and I've talked to Teresa and Bob. They get it, it has to be someone I trust and care about. Bob is the guy I'd only spend one weekend with. All my needs would be taken care of and everything would be history. Hank was shocked. His wife had secretly talked to his buddies and convinced Bob to spend the whole weekend with her. So you're hanging out with my buddy, and he'll be with his wife. His wife also plans to chill with me. Can you believe it? I'll be happy to be with her. Come on, you must be kidding, he said with a fierce tone. Nobody's cheating, babe. I'm just suggesting a trade. It's not cheating if you know what's going on and you're cool with it. That's why I'm telling you now. Nothing has happened yet, I swear. I really need this, Hank. If you love me, you'll make my last wish come true. Hank was shocked. So you're not sure if I love you? And calling it a dying wish is a low blow. You're not thinking straight, babe. This is crazy talk. I can't go along with this. If you go through with it, it's gonna be a problem. Glenda, this is it. Hank, you've spoiled me since we got married. You've always given me everything I wanted, fancy holidays, luxury cars, and let me buy all the clothes and shoes I could ever dream of. So why is this situation so different? Have I ever gone on a trip alone with another guy? No. It's always been just you and me. Did you buy me those clothes for someone else to see? No, you bought them to make me happy. It's always been just us two, maybe that's too much to ask for right now, but... Look, if you leave me, it's gonna ruin our marriage. Just think about it, after I'm out of the picture, you'll probably end up dating other women before you decide to get married again. I won't ever have that chance. Can't you see how unfair that is? I'm sorry you had to give up so much to be with me and only me all this time. Once you're finally rid of me, you can go out and see as many guys as you want. No need to worry about getting pregnant or catching STDs, you'll have it made. I sarcastically said, as her eyes started to tear up. Hey, listen, I've always put you and the kids first before myself. I don't regret it, but now I think you need to be a bit more understanding and set aside your ego this time. Let me have this, okay? Glenda said, if you weren't dying, would you want to sleep with another guy? Just be honest. I don't know, maybe, Hank replied. Okay, thanks for being honest. I'm sorry I'm not good enough for you, she winced, but continued, let me ask you something, Hank, if I never got cancer and... If I asked you to hook up with another guy, would you say no? Of course not. After we split up, you could do whatever and whoever you wanted. But you'd never really know me again. She ignored my warning and went ahead anyways. Didn't you always want me to have everything, always giving me more than I asked for? Are you gonna start saying no now that I'm making my dying wish, Glenda? I used to think I meant everything to you. Thanks for proving me wrong. She started crying and ran out. Usually I would try to comfort her, but this time was different. I hope she changes her mind. I overheard her talking on the phone, but couldn't make out what was being said. 10 minutes later, I heard a car pulling into our driveway. Bob and Teresa didn't just randomly show up for a visit, this feels like an ambush. As she went to answer the front door, I quietly slipped out the back and wandered around their neighborhood. I left my phone on the kitchen table, so reaching me would be difficult. I had a lot on my mind as I walked. I went back after about 90 minutes and their car was gone. I thought their plan to surprise me had failed. Where were you? I've been really worried. Bob and Teresa stopped by and we had no idea where you were. Glenda said that when you were upset earlier, we both needed some space, so I went for a walk. I don't remember Bob and Teresa saying they were coming over today. What's going on? She gave me a cold look. They were out running errands and happened to be nearby, so they stopped by. We've seen each other around a bunch of times over the years, but too bad you missed them this time. They wanted to chat with you about our earlier convo. Just so you know, they're way more pumped about it than you are. I really don't feel like discussing the bomb you dropped on me earlier with them. But hey, your besties are your go-to for talking about stuff like that. They used to be my main crew, but that's over now. Suddenly, they're all about you. I'm cutting ties with all of them. Hank, you can't seriously be involved with them. Why are you being so stubborn about this? I just had a chat with you, nothing more. Are you really willing to throw away a lifelong friendship without a word? You're a better man than that, I know you are, and so does Bob. I'm guessing you spilled the beans about our talk while they were around, right? Of course I did, what did you expect? They're our best buds, that's what friends do, they help each other out. I figured as much. So, what advice did Bob give you about our problem? They get it. Hey Hank, everyone thinks you're the nicest, most understanding husband, dad, and friend anyone could ask for. Remember when you helped that guy get a job where you work? He said you're the best guy he knows. I bet he said even more nice things about you. What else did he say about our situation? He mentioned he understands both sides, even though he's been your buddy forever. He pointed out that you're not the one who's dying, so there should be some special treatment. This guy who's about to kick the bucket had some good advice. His counsel made a lot of sense. I agreed with him, and when I asked my wife what she thought, she rolled her eyes before saying he believed it's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission. Well, you ain't getting either from me. I said before walking away that Bob and Teresa are ancient history to me now. Our friendship is done. I'll only keep things professional with Bob at work. We're in different departments, so it shouldn't be a problem. Later that night, Glenda got me all worked up and took advantage of the situation to have her fun with me again. Glenda was happy with how much action they were getting, but Hank had a feeling she was keeping track. He didn't really care as long as she didn't push too far. They had been getting it on every night that week, even on Friday morning before work. Glenda told Hank, "Hey babe, I've got something to tell you before you head out tonight around 9 o'clock. Hey, I'm heading over to Bob and Teresa's place. Bob told me that you only talk to him about work and you never call or text him back. Teresa also said you don't talk to her. I'll be back on Sunday afternoon and can't wait to see you. Just wanted to give you a heads up so you come straight home from work tonight. I want to make sure you're happy before I leave, alright? Everything seems to be falling apart in Hank's world, and I know things are about to change. Glenda. I was gonna do whatever the hell she wanted, Glenda. You know I love you, but I can't forgive you for being with another man. I see it as cheating because I don't agree with it, and I don't want you to do it. If you're with Bob or some other dude this weekend, I won't be around when you come back. I'll never talk to Bob or Teresa again, and I won't have anything to do with our godchildren. You'll all betray me in the worst way if you sleep with him. I won't touch you again," he whispered sadly. Glenda started to respond, but he cut her off. Bob and Teresa were crying, and they told her that Hank would forgive her. So she couldn't imagine he wouldn't be there for her as she got closer to the end. After tonight, my dear husband, you'll know who I love and need in my life, you. But I also need this. I'm sorry you can't understand my feelings and grant me my dying wish. She wanted to kiss him goodbye, but he dodged her and quickly left. He heard her crying as he walked out the door, hoping she would change her mind. Hank came back home for lunch to check on Glenda, and she had a suitcase. He found a bunch of underwear hidden under the bed that he didn't recognize, so it seemed like she had made up her mind. He had to do the same before heading back to work. He texted her saying he had to work late on some special project and wasn't sure when he'd be home. He hoped she'd rethink joining him. Then he left his phone on the kitchen table, making it clear he wouldn't be there for her that night. He wanted her to worry and maybe reconsider later. Bob later found Hank at work and told him to stop being so stubborn. Bro, think about Glenda, not just yourself. This is her dying wish and I can't say no to her. All I see is my so-called best friend promising to sleep with my wife to make her happy. I can't stop you from messing up my marriage, but just know there will be serious consequences if you lay a finger on Glenda. Teresa, you, and my godchildren will be cut out of my life for good. It will be the end of my marriage and our friendship. I guess you'll be Glenda's new man, 'cause I won't go near her once you've had your turn. Hey Hank, this isn't like you. You're a better guy than this. You don't really mean any of it. I know you better than you know yourself. I don't care what you think you know, I meant every word. Now get out of my office. Do you want me to tell the boss why you're wasting my time? Bob knew Hank was pissed off and wouldn't listen to reason. He hoped that after Glenda and Hank had a romantic night, things would get better. Hank was furious and shaking with anger. Nothing they said could change his mind. Bob and Teresa seemed to care more about Glenda than Hank. So, Hank is usually chill, but there are a few things that really get on his nerves. He dipped out of work early to dodge Bob and went to the gym, which he hardly ever goes to. He just needed to blow off some steam without being sore as hell the next day. He was feeling all sorts of messed up, sad, pissed off, and helpless while he was working out. He had a quick moment of sadness, but he kept it together and didn't start bawling in front of everyone. After a shower, he bounced from the gym around 7:30 feeling a bit better but still with some shit to figure out. He hit up Harper, this spot he used to go to with Glenda for special occasions. He thought about all the great times they had there, feeling happy and sad at the same time. As he thought about his options, he wondered if he was really strong enough to stand by what he had told Glenda. His beliefs were so important to him that he was willing to risk everything for them. We had 25 amazing years before this happened. I never thought I'd be in this situation with her. I thought about fighting Bob, but what would that solve? He knows how I feel and still plans to go through with it, even if I threaten him. Glenda. Glenda had already admitted that she might have wanted this even if she didn't have cancer. When Hank didn't come home that evening, she got worried. She saw his cell phone on the kitchen table and thought he must have left it there when he texted about working late. "Hey Bob, this is Glenda. I know it's you, silly. I would recognize your sweet voice anywhere. How's life at home with Hank? I hope things are peaceful." Bob asked, "That's what I'm talking about. Do you understand why Hank would be working late tonight? He texted me at noon to say he's working on some secret project. I have no clue what Hank is going on about. I stayed late at work and when I left, the parking lot was deserted. Hank's car was already gone, even though we don't work together. I haven't heard of any special projects or overtime work. Have you tried calling him?" "That's the issue, Bob. I did as soon as I got home. I checked to see when he'd be back, but his phone is on the kitchen table so I can't reach him unless he's at work. Didn't you say you? We're gonna give him some special lovin' tonight that'll knock his socks off. I told him this morning, so I don't get why he's dodging me. What should I do, Bob?" "Glenda, I think Hank's just being a drama queen. He's playing games to mess with your head. If he decides to miss out tonight, he's a fool. He doesn't know how lucky he is to have you. He'll regret it once you're gone. Hank's just being a..." "Bob, my man, you're my best friend but even good guys mess up sometimes. You know what you want and you deserve it, and he's trying to mess it up. If you want to cancel, I'll get it." "No way, Bob, I'm not giving up now. I've already dealt with too much crap from him." "You're spot on, Bob. If he misses out tonight, it's his loss. I'll save my energy for hanging out with you this weekend. I can't thank you and Teresa enough." That's the attitude, Glenda. Hopefully, Hank will come to his senses and spend some time with you. "Thanks, Bob. I'm feeling a lot better now. I'll wait for him to come home, but I still plan on leaving around 9. I'll be at your place shortly after. Nothing would make me happier, Glenda. I promise to give you my best this weekend. I hope it's what you're looking for, I'm sure it will be. See you soon, Bob. Bye." As I sat in the restaurant, I thought about my options. If she goes with Bob, I will never touch her again. She would be breaking our wedding vows. She's not being forced, this is her choice. On top of that, I'm losing my 2 best friends. They're both in on Glenn's betrayal. I would never do to Bob what he's doing to me. The 3 of them are dead to me. Divorce. I could have her served, but it would be pointless as she'd be dead before it's finalized. I need to secure my finances, who knows what she'll do next. I came home around 9:30 that night, she was gone. She had to be with Bob. I've never felt sadder or lonelier. The sorrow of loss was unbearable, but I knew what I had to do. I found a sealed envelope on the kitchen table with my name on it. It was. Glenda had her phone off this weekend and didn't want to be bothered. I was cool with that, so I decided not to open the envelope she left me. When I finally checked my phone, I saw that she had called and texted me earlier. She was worried that I hadn't responded and promised to make it up to me when she got back. She said she needed me and swore she loved only me. but I didn't care about her words, so I deleted them all. The first thing I did was move all my clothes to a new spot. I moved all my stuff from the main bedroom to the spare room to make sure it looked like I was never there. Then, I grabbed our wedding album and cut out all my pictures from it. I put it back together and left it on her bed. I called my brother and asked if I could crash at his place for a few nights. He said I could stay as long as I needed, since he had a spare room. I took one of Glenda's sleeping pills to help me sleep. Sometimes that stuff works like magic. Just then, the doorbell rang. Morning, waking Hank up, he threw on his robe and went to the door. "What are you doing here, Teresa?" "I thought I made it clear to Bob yesterday," he said. "Good morning, Hank." "I could have just used our key, you know," Teresa replied. "We both have spare keys to each other's places." "Can I come in?" she asked. He understood she was right, so he let her in. "What's up?" "You can just tell me here." "Why are you here?" Hank asked. "If you had answered the phone, I wouldn't have had to come over," Teresa said, getting straight to the point. "That's it, Teresa. Why are you here?" "Hey, Hank. Glenda told me you weren't happy about this, so I'm here to lend a hand. You're one of my closest friends, so help me out, Teresa." "What's the plan, Hank?" "I can be a buddy to talk to, help with cleaning, cook for you, or just hang out to cheer you up. We all agreed you could use some company this weekend. But it seems like the three of you have made decisions I don't agree with. I've got a lot on my plate today and you've come at a bad time. Please leave. Don't even think about coming back if you try to use that key. I'll call the cops." "Goodbye, Teresa," he said, slamming the door shut. He watched her sobbing on the phone, probably talking to Bob or Glenda. He had tried to be nice, but he was still mad. She sat in her car for a bit before driving off. After breakfast, Hank went to the store to buy new locks for 2 doors. He felt relieved knowing he was the only one with the keys. Then he changed his phone number so Glenda couldn't contact him. Finally, he took off his wedding ring and smashed it. He put it on the kitchen table next to her phone in his workshop, packed a small suitcase, and went out to lunch with his brother's family on Sunday. Glenda was supposed to come back that afternoon, and he wanted to leave before she got home. He had a blast with his family. When Glenda got back home Sunday afternoon, she was expecting to see her husband, who she would console until he forgot all about her being gone. She was mad that he wasn't there. She thought he was running errands until she saw their wedding album on the bed, and then she exploded. She started bawling when she saw that he had cut himself out of all the pictures, then she realized all his clothes were missing. Had he moved out? She found the sealed letter she had left for him on the bed. She tried calling Hank, but the phone was disconnected. Things were getting worse. This wasn't what Bob had assured her. He had said Hank couldn't make it without her. She searched the rest of the house and saw new locks on the spare room door. Maybe he hadn't left after all, but was just pissed off and staying put. "Hey, so I was in another room and wasn't sure who to call." Glenda ended up calling Teresa to see if Hank had said anything about his plans. Glenda was like, "No, when I called Bob that morning, I told him everything Hank had said, which wasn't much. I'm really hurt by how Hank's been treating me." Glenda then told Teresa what she found when she got back home. Bob and Teresa were listening in on speakerphone. Bob was like, "Didn't you leave Hank a letter saying you were gonna quit your job and spend all your time making him happy?" And she was like, "Yeah. Bob, I did what you told me and wrote that letter to him, but he never even bothered to read it. He has no clue what it says, it's still sitting here," she cried. "Glenda, don't stress about it. It's obvious that Hank moved his stuff to the guest room just to annoy you. He's just feeling sorry for himself and will come back soon, trust me." "I hope you're right." "Thanks for the pep talk," Glenda replied. She then tried reaching out to Hank's brother and parents, but his parents had no clue where he had gone. His brother said he hadn't heard from him, and when Hank asked, Glenda understood it was her turn to be patient. Just like Hank had been over the weekend. But she really missed him. She'd never felt more distant from him, and she cried herself to sleep alone in bed for the first time in a while. So, on Monday at like 6:30 in the morning, I called work before anyone was even there and left a voicemail for my boss saying I needed to take some personal days because of a family emergency. I didn't feel like dealing with Bob yet, and I definitely didn't want anyone from work bothering me. I decided to move some money around to make sure our finances were secure. We had a nice little nest egg after being married for 25 years, and I wanted to keep it safe. I just didn't trust Glenda anymore, so I moved 2/3 of our cash and investments to accounts that only I could access. I wouldn't even notice unless she snooped around because all the bills would still be taken care of. It took up most of the day, but I was glad to have a break from all the drama. I knew the real showdown would happen when I got back home. Tuesday morning, I went for a nice walk in the park before grabbing lunch at a nearby diner. The movie theaters opened at noon, so I spent the afternoon there. Tuesday night, the anxiety started creeping back about facing her. I told myself not to start any fights, and I thanked my brother. Thanks to him and his fam for letting me crash and think. Went back to work on WED, and my boss didn't even ask about my fam, which was cool. But then Bob showed up at my office like, "Finally you're here, have you talked to Glenda? She's freaking out about you." I just blanked him, walked out of the office without saying anything. He kept following me, calling out as I left. I went to the guys' bathroom and ignored them. I made up my mind not to talk to Bob or Teresa anymore. I was sure Glenda would fill them in, so I didn't bother. Bob told Glenda he saw me. She blew up my phone with 4 calls in a row. I put her on hold and jammed out to some tunes until she gave up. When I left work, Bob didn't say a word but tailed me to a restaurant. I didn't want drama ruining my meal, so I ignored him. He waited till I left and then followed me again. I caught him on the phone as I got closer. "Yo," as soon as I got home, I saw Glenda waiting for me in the driveway. She came running out for a hug, but I quickly grabbed my gym bag to keep some distance. When we got inside, Glenda started crying and asked me where the hell I've been. She was freaking out and said she hadn't been able to relax until I showed up. She told me not to scare her like that again. I couldn't help but wonder if she was as worried about my relationship with another woman as I was about hers. Another guy. Yeah, right. That would be cheating, wouldn't it? I hope Teresa told you that I didn't let her in the house. Her sad face showed she got my point. I was proud of myself for not yelling. "Hank, I know you're mad, that's why we need to talk and move on. You don't know how much I want you tonight. I'm gonna make it up to you. I just talked to Glenda. I'm sure Bob told you everything. This is not a good time. Actually, I doubt there will ever be a good time. Hey, you really messed up your body for me, so I can't even think about touching you right now. It makes me sick just thinking about it. I'm so tired after a long day. Good night. Don't walk away from me, Hank. I was really worried and you just brushed me off. That's not gonna fly. I want you in my bed tonight, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, Glenda. I just got home and I'm exhausted. Let me shower and change first. I promise we can talk later after I clean up. Sound fair?" I was shocked that I had no clue. Man, I really wanted to be with her and she was down with my idea. I took my stuff to my room, locked the door, and got changed into fresh clothes after stripping down to my boxers. Then I had a nice long shower in the bathroom down the hall. I knew tonight was gonna be tough, but to her credit, she gave me some space. She definitely saw the lock on the bathroom door, but she didn't try to bust in. I got dressed, took my dirty clothes back to my room, and shut the door again. I decided I needed to start doing my own laundry from now on. She was waiting for me in the living room. Just chillin' on the couch in a see-through nightie. I was sitting in a chair next to her, which clearly ticked her off. She told me to come over and sit with her, saying she had a lot to tell and show me in her seductive voice. I could hear her just fine from where I was. I asked her what she wanted to tell me. She said she was disappointed but determined. She said she loved me and was sure I loved her too, and that we were meant to be together forever. She said she'd reach the other side before me, but she'd wait for me to catch up. Hey, just wanted to say I hope you have a long and happy life, even if it means hanging out with other women. I can't stand the thought of not having you in my arms. Let's just move on from this topic and never talk about it again. I want to love you like never before until the end of time, that's all I want. Hank, before we go any further, I have a few questions. Shoot, Hank. Did you hook up with Bob last weekend? She nodded quietly. Did you treat him the same way you treat me? Bob warned me not to spill any details, said it might upset you. Damn, I can't believe he's calling the shots in our marriage now. Thanks for filling me in, good night Glenda. I got up and left the room. All right, I'll answer your questions. Go back to your seat, she begged before you left for the weekend. I warned you about the consequences, but you chose to believe him. You put your trust in the wrong guy, now you have to face the facts. Stop calling him that, he's your buddy. He was your buddy before we even met. They're our best pals, you're just mad. Bob pointed that out to you. Give me some time to chill out, he's right about that. I reckon I'll be cool in like 6 months. Her eyes widened, 6 months. I'll be out of here before that. Hank, you can't be serious, we need to move on now. Please let me help you get over this, I'll make it right. I'm sorry Glenda, I don't feel like throwing up on purpose, that's not my style. Are you dumping me, Hank? Are you saying it's over for us? She asked, her voice trembling. I seriously thought about that. You was with some other dude last weekend and you know I ain't the type to break my promises. I'll keep honoring them till death do us part. I ain't gonna cheat on you like you did on me. I'll stay in the crib but we'll be sleeping in different rooms. I'll handle the bills and do my usual stuff. I ain't walking out on you, I ain't gonna ditch you. Remember when you was sick and well? But my promises don't mean I gotta have sex or kiss you ever again. All I'm asking is for you to stop inviting that dude and his crew. Hey, if you see my wife around here, let me know so I can make a quick exit until she's gone. What have I done? I messed everything up between us. Hank, if what you're saying is true, it wasn't worth it. Spending 1,000 weekends with him or anyone else wouldn't be worth it. My only hope is that you'll forgive me before it's too late. I'm sorry, Hank. I'm sorry for what I've done to us. The heart doesn't always listen to what the brain says, never does. Oh, and one more thing, Glenda, since you're not gonna be intimate with me anymore, if you end up with him or anyone else. Yo, don't be doing that in this house, go meet up with them somewhere else. I don't want to hear about it. She was so mad, her face was red with anger. Listen up, that was a one-time thing and it ain't ever happening again. I want you to be the only man I'm with, I swear I'll never be with anyone else but you. I remember you making the same promise on our wedding day, but it's hard to believe you now. She started crying uncontrollably, so I went to my room, locked the door, and left her crying. The next morning, I left the house early to avoid her. Bob came storming into my office in the middle of the morning. He said, I won't leave until you talk to me. What you're doing to Glenda is unforgivable. He kept on talking until I picked up the phone and called my supervisor. Hello Dennis, I've got a problem. Bob won't leave my office and he's getting in the way of my work. Can you help? After a pause, Dennis replied, Are you serious? You're not man enough to talk to me so you had to call. Hey, so the boss called my office phone just now and I had to pass the call to Bob. He was like, This is for you, and I was like, Hello, yes sir, I get it, won't happen again. He looked defeated and gave me the phone back. But then he said, This is not over, Hank. We've got too much history to end things like this. I just ignored him until he left. He knew better than to mess with me outside of work or I'd report his harassment. I'll handle it. Anyway, the doctor said Glenda has less than 2 months left of good health. Man, I can handle 2 months of misery if I have to. Last night, I went to a family restaurant to avoid eating with Glenda. I needed to find a spot to eat after she left. When I got home, she had cooked dinner. She said, Hey honey, I made your favorite. I hope you're hungry. I saw you were running late, so I kept it warm for us. I replied, Sorry, but I already ate. That's why I'm late. Since you won't be around much longer, I'll have to find somewhere else to eat once you're gone. I should have told you earlier. I'm gonna start eating out more often to make things easier for you. You're also taking away my chance to please you. You've made it clear that you're not interested in sex with me, but I was hoping you'd let me make it up to you. Am I nothing to you now? Is this the end? I can't say what you want to hear, Glenda. You apologize for being with another man, and I apologize too. There are consequences for your actions. Neither of us is happy about it, but that's just how it is. I'm going to my room now. She's crying again. Hank, you don't get it. Why do you always have to stay cooped up in your room? Can't you come downstairs and watch TV or something? I don't have any contagious diseases and I can't spread my cancer to you, so don't shut me out completely. I was shocked by your reaction. I'll consider it, but only if you promise me 2 things. First, don't ever bring up that weekend or how much it cost us. I don't want to hear your version of the story. And second, never bring up that idiot or his wife to me again. If you see them, don't tell me about it before or after. Man, she was pissed when I was so tough on our friends. She never even asked to pick what to watch on TV, we only talked about work, politics, family, and other dull stuff. She stuck to our agreement on the touchy subjects, but I knew she had issues with them. She reached out to my old buddies when I was there, knowing it bugged me. We had a tense truce. Every night, I heard her crying herself to sleep. I don't think she regretted her actions, just the aftermath. Then, on Saturday, she surprised me by asking, "Hey, wanna grab some breakfast and lunch with me?" I told her not to bother cooking, so I just had cereal and then went out to mow the lawn. After that, I washed the dishes and ordered a sandwich for lunch so I could keep working on the car. She was doing laundry and asked me to throw in my clothes, but I said no and told her I'd do it myself. She ended up crying and walking away. Can you believe a woman would cry over her husband doing his own laundry? I was just glad to have chores to keep me busy and take my mind off things. Later on, I heard some noise. Alan, Brenda, Elise, and Edward were just shooting the breeze with their mom. I asked why they were all here, and Alan said, "Hey, Dad, good to see you," and gave me a hug. They've been hanging out with Mom since she got sick, and now that she only has a few good days left, they brought food for a cookout so Mom and I can chill while they take care of everything. I love spending time with the kids, but I have a feeling Glenda orchestrated this whole thing. They say all's fair in love and war, and even though we weren't exactly at war, it felt pretty close for her to involve the kids. An hour later, and I was. So, Glenda told Hank that the grill was clean and everything was ready. She said, "Honey, the kids want ice cream, but I need to grab a few things. I'll be back soon." And as soon as she left, my children bombarded me. Ailey asked, "Daddy, can we talk?" "Of course," I replied. She said, "Daddy, Mom and I talk a lot. We know what she did to Uncle Bob. We were shocked, but now we get it. We understand why it was hard for you, but you've had time to think. We believe she won't do it again. It was just something she wanted to do before kicking the bucket. Can't you forgive her? You haven't spoken to her since and you cut off Uncle Bob and Aunt Teresa, Dad. They've always been your ride or die, can't you see? Uncle Bob was just helping out someone who was on their deathbed. You could have been there with Aunt Teresa, but you were pissed. Do you think I should just let it go?" I asked all 4 of them and they all agreed. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. I love these people more than anything and I didn't want to push them away. So, then it hit me, "Alan, you're my boy, you know. I'd take a bullet for you without even thinking twice, right?" "Yeah, sure, Dad. You've always had my back, no doubt about that. And Brenda, she's my son's wife, you know. I really care about you, don't I? You know I'd do anything for you if it came down to it, Dad," I replied. "Of course, we all love you just the same. All 4 of us would do anything for you and Mom. That's why we're here," she said, with a smile. "I'm glad to hear that. It makes it easier to ask," Brenda added. "Hey Alan, your mom's been stressing me out lately and I've been thinking a lot about bucket lists. So, would you be cool with Brenda hanging out with me for a weekend to check something off her list? If she and I hang out like your mom and Bob did, it'll show that you're serious about your words. Maybe if you do that, I'll forgive your mom." "Are you nuts?" Alan yelled, and Brenda turned red with embarrassment. "I would never go along with that idea, Dad, not even if you were on your deathbed. I know Brenda's not blood, but it still feels wrong to me, like incest or something. I can't believe you'd even think about it," he was so mad. "You mean like Uncle Bob and your mom, that kind of deal?" I asked, and they all got quiet, thinking about what I said. I took a moment before speaking up again. "Brenda, I owe you and my kid a big apology. I would never do that, not even if I was dying. I made sure to get my point across. Alan, you said you would. Would never agree to it, even if I was on my deathbed. And neither would you. It's not like you have it any easier just because she's your mother. I mean, you're not even married to her. But think about it, Alan. If Brenda were to leave with me and then come back, would you still see her the same way? Could you forgive her as easily as you expect me to forgive your mother? As they weighed their options, the room went quiet. Alan nodded at Edward and they shook hands. Ellis hugged Brenda. Alan turned to me and said, "Dad, you're right. Thanks for teaching us another valuable life lesson. We learned a lot from this. Mom didn't consider things from your point of view, but you really made us see things differently. We still love Mom and want her to be happy, but we understand that she messed up big time and doesn't deserve forgiveness. We agree with your feelings towards Uncle Bob and Aunt Teresa. We're not picking sides, we love you both, but we won't pressure you into forgiving Mom. She needs to understand that we'll be there for her, but we won't let her manipulate us into making you forgive her. Hey, I just wanted to say how proud I am of all four of you. I never wanted you to ditch your mom, she's gonna need you more than ever as things come to an end. And I know you'll be there for her." I gave each of you a hug, feeling relieved at how everything worked out. The rest of the evening went smoothly. Glenda was happy with my positive attitude when she got back from the store. The kids nailed cooking the burgers and hot dogs, and the soft-serve strawberry ice cream for dessert was out of this world. Glenda didn't get a chance to talk to them alone because Glenda and I stayed close after cleaning up. She wanted to have a chat with me. "Hank, you seem to be in a good mood. It's great to see you smiling so much," she said. "I always feel happy when the kids come to visit. A little birdie told me they were planning to talk to you while I was out. They didn't seem mad, so did the conversation go well? Did they convince you to see things from my perspective or yours?" They said they were treating both sides fairly and not taking sides, which seemed reasonable to me. "We did a great job raising those kids, didn't we?" "My dear, I thought you would either agree with me or be left out in the cold." "I'm not so sure about that, Glenda. Maybe you should ask your bird again. I'm going to hop in the shower and change. We both had a hectic day." I left her confused as I headed to the shower. I knew she had talked to Ace while I was getting cleaned up. I wondered how her attitude would shift after their chat. "You're just being stubborn." Glenda freaked out when I walked in, and couldn't stop talking about herself. I told her it's probably for the best that she realized that now, instead of wasting time with me. I said I'm sure a friend will make a great husband, since I clearly won't. But she just ignored me and threw in, "Did you really ask Brenda to hook up with you?" She told me I should talk to Brenda before making things worse. I just used it as a learning experience. After listening to me, they said they'd stay neutral. I'd never do anything with Brenda. If you don't believe me, just ask her. She got mad at herself because using the kids as an excuse didn't work. I'm sure you told her what happened. She was just trying to piss me off. I just sat down and started watching TV while she went into her room and slammed the door. I hope she stays in there. Another week went by with hardly any communication between us. She was getting more and more frustrated, but we somehow managed to coexist peacefully. We still didn't eat together. I did my own laundry and dishes while she went out the following Saturday night and came back late. I thought she might have seen those sketchy people, but she didn't mention anything. And I didn't even ask. I think that made her really angry. Mr. Zikalala, the big boss, came to my office the next Monday. I hardly ever saw him. "Good morning, sir. What brings you here?" I asked politely. "It's Hank, right?" "Hank Greenlee." "Yes, sir." "Hank. I've heard good things about you, Dennis. Your boss says you do great work. I want to know what's going on in the company, and I want you to know that you're important." "Thank you, sir. That means a lot." "Yes, but there's something else." "Of course, sir, go ahead." "Hank, do you know? Hey, man, I know this guy named Brian McFadden. He's actually my father-in-law. We play golf together and have been buddies for years. Funny thing is, he never told me you worked here until now. He always wanted you to do well on your own, and you did. I gotta respect that. But Brian told me you and his daughter are going through some rough times. He even mentioned that she's sick with cancer and doesn't have much time left. Is that true, bro?
Yeah, it is.
But Brian is kinda cutting me off as a dad because he just wants his daughter to be happy in her last days. I'm sure you get where he's coming from, right? Brian told me to keep an eye on you. Sometimes men need to be kinder to their wives, it happens to everyone. I'm sure you're a good husband. I don't want Brian telling me you're not pulling your weight at home. Your job reviews reflect on your character. I was shocked when my father-in-law turned against me. I couldn't blame him, but I don't like feeling pressured. I didn't want to upset the CEO any further, so I said, "Of course, sir." "Thank you, I'll take care of it." "Make sure you do," he warned. "I don't want to have this conversation again." "I promise, sir," I assured him. "I don't have to thank you for the advice." He left feeling happy, thinking he had solved his friend's problem. After he left, I wrote my resignation letter, packed my stuff, and went to HR to hand it in. I gave back my ID and left the building. This solved two problems. It kept me away from my ex-boyfriend and my father-in-law's meddling, but it created another problem. I was now unemployed. With a lot of time on my hands, I did some thinking. Since it was still early, I went home and did some chores. Glenda came home from work at her usual time. "You're back early, why?" she asked. I gave her my usual annoyed look. "I quit my job today," I replied. "You what?" she yelled. "Yeah, it turns out your dad had it out for me, so I had no other choice," I said calmly. "How the hell did my dad make you quit your job?" she asked. "Well, it turns out your dad plays golf regularly with the CEO of my company, Brian Zucker. Mr. Zell came to my office this morning and told me your dad had been complaining about how I've been treating you. He made it clear that unless I fix things at home, I'm out. Dad's not happy with my work and now I might be in trouble. He said he'd give me bad reviews that could mess up my career. You know I don't take threats lightly. Even if I became the perfect husband for you again, the damage is done. The CEO has already painted me in a bad light, so I quit my job. And here I am. How can you blame my dad for you losing your job? You're a quitter, Hank. You gave up on me, our marriage, and your job. And now you want to blame my dad for your failures. He's a better man than you'll ever be. Damn, I messed up, I see that now. Sorry for being honest, won't happen again. How about this? My big toe was killing me today, so I quit. Is that a good enough reason for you, you idiot? Why do you have to be so stubborn? Can't you forgive me and go back to how things were before it's too late? Why would you want to be with someone like me, who's just a stubborn idiot? It doesn't make sense. Your friend is a much better man than I'll ever be, so why not move in with them and enjoy the time you have left? Who was the last person you hooked up with? I'm sure he'd be down for round 2. Why are you even with me if you think I'm a loser? Because I love you, Hank, and only you. No matter what, you're the only guy I've ever truly loved. You're just too blind to see it, she said, frustrated. We were both stuck, her with her love for me and me with my refusal to accept her cheating. We were at a standstill. I'm gonna grab something to eat. I'll be back later. Why don't you call your dad while I'm out and see if he can get someone to? I can't believe I got beat up for you, I said sarcastically. I thought she was all cried out, but I was wrong. I ended up leaving the house by myself to avoid more drama and just have a peaceful meal out. Turns out, she called her father while I was out and was waiting for me when I got back. I'm really sorry, Hank. I had no idea my father would use his friendship with your boss to try to blackmail you. As much as I love my dad and appreciate what he was trying to do, messing with someone's career isn't right. His heart was in the right place, but I take full responsibility. I messed up by not being completely honest with him about our issues. I kinda expected this. I get why your dad would try to pull some strings to help you out. I'd do anything for our kids, but I thought he was a better person than that. Now I see he didn't know the whole story. I'm gonna try to set things straight, with Dad's help, unless he wants nothing to do with me. What do you mean, Glenda? How can you fix my career? I've made up my mind, I'm quitting tomorrow morning. I don't need another job, Dad. We're gonna help you find a better one than the one you had. It's our fault you were put in a tough spot, so it's on us to fix it. Dad knows a lot of people besides your boss, and he'll use his connections, and so will I. We'll try our best to find the perfect job for you. Is this okay? This is a surprise. I was expecting another fight, but this is unexpected. I don't know what my options are, but I'm happy to accept help from both of you. Thanks. I convinced my dad to take a week off to help us find you a new job, or I'll die trying. True to her word, Brian showed up at our place early the next morning. He rode with Glenda to work as she quit her job. She was planning on quitting soon anyway, so she was glad to avoid the awkward going-away party they would have thrown. Our house turned into Job Central that week. All three of us were constantly on the phone with business contacts and connections trying to get something sorted. Interviews were a breeze, but we wanted each one to be a real chance, not just a shot in the dark. The economy was tanking and good jobs were hard to come by. I must have gone on like a dozen interviews that week. With their support, I had never seen Glenda so committed. She had this fierce drive to keep her word. Help ended up coming from an unexpected place. Brian put his ego aside and reached out to Gray and Zoto, admitting he had misunderstood his daughter's situation and had jumped the gun. He said he was sorry for causing trouble at Brian's. So, I was chatting with my boss and told him I couldn't go back to my old job. He was gutted to lose me and blamed his mate for freaking out. But then he said he'd make a few calls to sort something out. Just 45 minutes later, we got a call from Wellington Enterprises. They needed someone new to handle their purchases. They're a special kind of factory that helps inventors bring their ideas to life. Real investors give money for the ideas and Wellington turns them into actual products, making all kinds of cool stuff. It's tough, but they figured out their own way to get it done. We know most new products don't take off, but the few that do make it all worthwhile. I chatted with them the next day, and it seemed like they had already decided to hire me. They had issues with the last few employees being shady, so they were looking for someone honest and reliable. Greenland's good word about me definitely helped. They even offered me way more money than I was making before. Grace was a really cool person. I was gonna start in 3 weeks once they sorted out some staff issues. I thanked Brian and Glenda for helping me land this awesome job, and they both said it was the least they could do since they were involved in me getting fired from my last job. Brian and I were cool again. He even said I was a good husband to his daughter during the whole weekend event. He also said most guys wouldn't stick around with their wives like I did, leaving Glenda on her own. Finally, when we shook hands, he started crying and said he respected me again. Glenda seemed to be waiting for me to get this new job the next day. She passed out in pain and turned really pale. I rushed her to the hospital where they told us this was normal for her cancer. Her doctor sent her home with some meds to help her feel better and stay comfy. When folks found out, it seemed like they were saying their final goodbyes. I did all I could to make everyone feel better. Glenda told me one day that Bob, Teresa, and their kids were coming over. I told her I got it and would sort everything out. I then called Elise to keep an eye on them and let me know when they were gone. She handled it like a pro. My daughter is a genius. Everything went smoothly and I dodged a bullet with that visit. Elise's kids started hanging out more with Glenda when they saw she was running out of time. 2 weeks later, I was too weak to even get out of bed. My insurance let me hire a nurse for during the day, and I took care of her at night after work. She was super skinny and frail, and had a pain machine that she just had to press a button for. She couldn't even talk on the phone anymore, so I put it away. Everything was going through me now. Teresa called to check up on Glenda and she was worried about her. Don't bother hitting her up. I told her why and she wanted me to come by again. I told her it wasn't a good plan. She was bummed but didn't show it. Our kids and their partners took turns helping me out so I could chill once in a while. It was a huge help. As Glenda got sicker, I suggested putting her in hospice but she turned it down, saying she wanted to kick the bucket at home surrounded by her peeps. Unfortunately, I had to go along with it. Glenda ended up falling into a deep sleep and wouldn't wake up. I figured she was in a coma and knew the end was near. Our kids always had our backs, ready to let us know if anything changed. One late night, I was in Glenda's room, about to hit the hay, when all of a sudden she sat up. She had been out of it for 2 weeks, but now she was wide awake, looking bright and flashing a beautiful smile. Then she said, "Hank, I'm sorry for hurting you. Please forgive me. I really love you." I hurried over to her, gave her a kiss, and told her, "Of course I forgive you, Glenda. I love you too." She gently laid back down and drifted back to sleep. I knew that this was a special moment. So, I gathered all the kids and they stayed with me while I held her hand. 4 hours later, she took her last breath. We all cried and hugged, clinging onto each other for support. She showed her love for us. I was exhausted from all the arrangements, but Alan and Elise were a huge help. Glenda had made things easier by planning most of it ahead of time. She was cremated and we had a memorial service at a nearby chapel. The police nervously told me that her mother wanted Bob to speak after the pastor, as she thought it would be too much. I couldn't believe it when she made those plans without telling me, but the kids begged me to go along with it. I agreed for their sake. Before the service started, the family came together to support each other and greet guests. When Charlene, Joe, and Evelyn hugged me, I wasn't shocked. They were our godchildren and had nothing to do with their parents' actions. I hugged them back, remembering how much I cared for them. Bob and Teresa kept their distance but talked to everyone else. Brian just stood there. He showed up looking good and surprised us all. He made it clear that he didn't want any distance between us, and I agreed. Brenda, Alan's wife, was sitting on my left and held my hand during the service. Elise was on my right, holding my other hand. I loved my kids and appreciated the love Glenda had taught them for family. The preacher gave a powerful message of hope and redemption. The music included 3 songs that reminded me of Glenda. Then Bob took the stage. Brenda and Alice squeezed my hands, reassuring me that they were here to support me. So, Bob told me that Glenda asked him to read a letter she wrote. She must have given it to him when Elise was there last time. The letter told us to cherish our time, forgive each other, and keep in touch with me and the kids. She even joked about helping me find a good woman to be with. We all laughed at that. Bob ended by saying he's known Hank the longest. Glenda was hoping we could all just forgive each other. I messed up, but I had good intentions. But Hank just can't bring himself to forgive me. We've been tight since middle school, but he's holding a grudge this time. As Bob kept talking, Alan gave a signal to the guy running the sound system to cut Bob's mic. Brenda, Alice, Edward, and Alan helped me leave the main chapel. Teresa, Charlene, Joe, and Evelyn all got up and walked out with us. Bob was shocked to see his own family leave. Alan filled him in on what was going on. Charlene told me she heard her dad may be talking smack about you. I made a plan with the minister to shut off his mic if he tried anything when he showed up. I had a chat with him and he promised to only say what Mom wanted. I didn't expect his whole family to come along with us outside. I glanced at Charlene and she said, "I love my dad and all of you." What he said was wrong. We know what really happened and we got your back, even your family. I'm sorry we haven't been in touch since that weekend. I love you all even more now that you've shown your true colors. Hey, Teresa. I'm sorry for being involved in all this drama. I just want to say I'm really sorry for what my husband did to you publicly. It's embarrassing and I feel terrible about it. Please don't let his actions ruin your happiness. You have a great family that loves you and supports you. Find joy in them. As a wise person once told me, you can either be bitter or better, but you can't be both. Teresa held me tight, even though she's still married to Bob and supports him and Glenda. I wasn't sure if I could handle all that stuff, but then people started leaving the chapel and giving me their condolences. I asked Charlene, Joe, and Evelyn to take care of the flowers from the service, and they said they would. As I was getting ready to leave, Charlene asked if she could come with me. Alan and Ely said yes, so she held my hand and walked me to my car. She drove us home and made a yummy meal. After having lunch with all the dishes people sent over, she helped me clean the kitchen and stuck around until dinner. As my kids got closer, Charlene gave me a big hug, told me she loved me, and asked me to stay close. Charlene was a good person who was raised right. Bob tried to make things right with me a few times in the weeks that followed, but I turned him down. His kids invited me and my kids to BBQs a few times, but they never brought up Bob or Teresa. After that, we didn't really talk as much. Everyone's got their own lives, you know. I wasn't too bummed about it. I just focused on getting the job done, making sure we got everything we needed on time and for a good price. I was in charge of a team of 7, 3 of which were newbies. I was really proud of how well we all worked together. Everyone pulled their weight and I saw them as part of my work crew, almost like family. About a year after Glenda passed away, Alan hit me up with a strange text asking me to meet him at this fancy restaurant called Chez Roberto on Saturday night. He said it was his treat and that he had something special in the works that he wanted to share with me. So, this guy I know told me to suit up. I was curious about what he had planned, but happy he wanted me to come along. I got my nicest suit cleaned for the occasion. Roberto's is a fancy place where important people go for fancy events. It's expensive, but famous for its good food. I had never been there before. When I got there, Alan told me to give my name to the guy at the door. He quickly checked my reservation and told me to follow the waiter to my table. As we were walking, I could totally feel the lovey-dovey vibe with couples giving each other the eyes. There were a few tables with fancy businessmen, which I figured was where I was supposed to be. But as we got closer, I saw a classy lady sitting all by herself at a table. She looked so elegant, I thought some lucky guy must be keeping her company. I was shocked when the waiter asked me to sit at her table. I was like, nah, there must be some mistake. But he insisted and even offered to pull out my chair. So, I pulled up a seat across from the woman and sat down. She looked just as shocked as me. "Hey Teresa. What are you doing here?" she asked. "I'm guessing the same reason as you." "Let me guess, did Alan invite you here tonight?" "No, Charlene did. I was supposed to meet her here at 8. "Ah, and I was supposed to meet Alan here at 8. I think something fishy is going on." Right then, both of our phones started buzzing with new messages. We both read them. "Let me guess, Charlene can't make it tonight. How did you figure it out?" "I see, yes, we were both fooled by our kids." The waiter waited patiently, as if expecting something. "Teresa, since we..." "Hey, we're here. Wanna order something instead of just sitting around?" "Might as well, right?" She agreed. "I've heard good stuff about this place." I nodded, catching the waiter's eye. "Hey, sir, could we get 2 menus?" "That won't be necessary, sir," he replied, clapping his hands. Suddenly, 3 waiters appeared from the kitchen with trays of mouth-watering food. They set the dishes down in front of us, as if they knew exactly what we wanted, and quickly left. We were both amazed. How did they know? I wondered. Teresa just smiled and said, "These are all my favorites." "Favorite dishes, mine too. It's like someone knows us so well, right? It's like they ordered them just for us, those rascals," she exclaimed. "If I'm going to be surprised, I can think of worse things." "You're right about that," I responded, realizing what she meant. "I can guess why they did that," she said. "They knew you would never contact me. You made it clear how you felt about us after everything that happened. And now looking back, I don't blame you, Hank. Actually, I don't mind too much because it's just you. But if he had been here. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have bothered sitting down," he clarified. "Do you mean Bob?" she asked, surprised. "Are you seriously claiming you don't know?" "No, has something happened to him?" "I haven't spoken to him since before Glenn died, and the kids know better than to mention him around me." "Ah, I see. That explains it. A lot has happened. Would you like to hear the story, Teresa?" "I don't have any other plans tonight, so you've piqued my curiosity." "Okay, but I should warn you, his name will come up a lot in this chapter. It's been over a year, but I think I can handle it." "Hey, Teresa, don't freak out," but about 3 weeks after Glenda's funeral, Bob started feeling off. He went to the doctor who sent him to a specialist and he was told he had stage 4 prostate cancer. His only option was to have a big surgery to remove his prostate because the cancer had spread too far. During the surgery, they had to cut some blood vessels and nerves. After he recovered, Bob found out that the surgery had left him unable to perform due to the damage. Bob's plumbing wasn't working right, he couldn't get it up because of nerve damage. Poor guy couldn't finish the job anymore. I was shocked to hear this news. I had no idea since the kids have been keeping me in the dark about his health issues. She saw the look of surprise on my face and kept going. I hope you don't mind me being straight with you, Hank. I've been friends with you and Glenda for so long, I feel comfortable talking about personal stuff. I just nodded as she mentioned Bob's radiation treatments. After the surgery messed with his head, he really tried to please me in different ways. I think it boosted his confidence, but then he got fed up and stopped trying. He told me to get toys to entertain myself. He was upset and didn't want to get help. He started drinking a lot and started being mean with his words when he lost his job. Things got worse when he started hitting me. I wasn't going to put up with it, so after 3 strikes, I filed for divorce. So, Bob got out of jail just last week. You know, I haven't been with a guy in like a year. My head was spinning when I heard what they went through. I never say it, but I think karma's a bitch. Then I saw Teresa. I don't even know Teresa. I'm at a loss for words. I had no idea about his diagnosis or how he treated you. I feel stupid for turning my back on you too. I wish I was there for you. You didn't deserve any of that. What the hell happened, Hank? It seems like we both got screwed over. I'm just baffled. I reached across the table to touch her hand. We can't change the past, but maybe we can make a difference in the future. I got up, moved my chair next to hers, leaned in, and gave her a gentle kiss. She was just as into it as I was. Right after our kiss, we heard a bunch of people stand up and cheer, pumping their fists in the air. We looked over and saw all our kids and their spouses at a big table in the corner, watching us. We laughed so hard our sides hurt and we could barely catch our breath. It was so sweet to see our kids showing us love like that, and Teresa and I told him about the struggles we both went through, and it brought us closer in a weird way. The bad times passed, and things started looking up. We told the kids they still had to deal with the consequences. Now, on to the next chapter. I waited almost a year after the divorce before reaching out to Winslow Hubble. Things had settled down, and the memories had faded, at least for him. But for me, they were still raw and painful. They fueled me as I planned out the second part of my revenge. The first part was all about. The divorce was pretty quick. Ashley and I didn't have enough cash to make it juicy for the lawyers. When the separation details came out, her folks weren't interested in her trying to drag me to court. We didn't have much stuff to split up since we were just renting and making around the same amount of money. Everything went pretty easy, even though Ash tried her best to make it messy. She didn't want to split, but I did. It took her a while to figure out she wasn't running the show anymore. I tried to let her down easy. I tried to talk her into admitting her cheating, but when that didn't work, I warned her that I would send out videos of her cheating to everyone she knew. She caved pretty quickly, like a pro at folding paper into origami. Less than a year after Ashley started cheating in our bed, we were living in different places, had separate bank accounts, and were living separate lives. We used to have a mix of friends, but it was hard to bring them all together. Her friends were all fancy bankers from the Brooks Brothers district, while mine were more like struggling writers turned corporate salesmen. So we found out that Doc Martin's crew ain't vibin' well with Violent Jackal and Sneaky Otter. I thought about punishing Ashley for her cheating ways, but I decided that divorcing her was enough payback for her wild nights. She messed up a good marriage, a dope apartment she couldn't afford solo, and a promotion at work. She was working at Pierce Bate Potter Gordon and McDuck, an investment firm that valued their married employees. Sadly, Ash ain't part of that crew no more. She ain't fit the bill anymore, but she could still climb the career ladder, just gonna take more time and be harder. Sometimes I wondered which hit her the hardest, losing our sweet spot on the Upper West Side, our marriage, or a direct path to the corner office. Truth is, I already knew. In the divorce, Ash got Winslow. I think she wanted him to leave with me, but she ruined that chance. I didn't care leaving her to deal with the aftermath. Winslow Hubble was my wife's man on the side, not her lover. Whatever was happening between Winslow and Ashley wasn't about love or affection. He wasn't her boyfriend either. I hadn't kept in touch with my ex-wife since we split. In fact, I made sure to completely remove myself from her life. But I bet my last dollar that she hasn't thought about him since I sent her the video of them together. Let's move on to the next chapter before Winslow answers his phone. It rang twice. The double call was a high school trick he used in college and at Pierce Bateman. Never. Don't ever seem too eager or desperate. Let the phone ring a few times before answering. If you knew this trick, he just seemed sad. The same goes for Winslow, his voice is all snooty and arrogant. When Winslow Hubble answered the phone, he greeted me with a, "Hello Winslow, this is Charlie Walker." "Ah, Chuck Walker," he replied, sounding nostalgic. I could hear the grin in his voice as he leaned back in his creaky leather seat. "What do you want, Chuck? Got any money to invest?" Winslow probably knew I didn't have much to invest. My little nest egg was probably smaller than the rounding error for most people. "Yo, dude, Pierce the Bateman ain't gonna bother us anymore, I'm good now." I smirked, knowing his nickname would bug him. I thought it was time we had a chat. Winslow snorted, "I can't think of anything for us to talk about, man." He chuckled slyly, "You seem to be jet-setting all the time. I can't see why I'd want to grab a drink with you." "All right, Vinny, here's the deal, you still got a wife, I still got a video. I guess I should fill you in on my story. Me and my ex-wife, I'm Chuck Walker, a ex-journalist who now edits boring papers about a big company's charity work for a living. It's not the most exciting job, but it pays well. The people here are nice, and it means I won't have to survive on cat food and a drug habit in retirement. Ashley is a banker on Wall Street, a far cry from the fake ideals that make my job feel hypocritical. Pierce Bateman really thinks that if something makes money, then it's all good. Ash and I were a perfect match, even though we had different jobs. We were both in our 30s, old enough to think about having kids but still young enough to not stress about it too much. I was 56, with brown eyes and green hair, and I stayed in shape by hitting the gym and walking a bunch every day. Ash was 5 feet 6 inches, with dark brown hair, bright blue eyes, and a body that I couldn't stop thinking about. Me and my wife met at a We Were Promised Jetpacks show in Brooklyn before and after we tied the knot. She accidentally spilled beer on my third favorite t-shirt, but I didn't mind because I got her number. We talked a ton that night, ditching a Scottish reggae band to drink beer in the little smoking area outside. I had been dating in New York long enough to know she was one of a kind, beautiful, smart, funny, and unapologetically honest. I later found out just how special she really was. So, she was the baby of 5 kids with 4 older brothers who were just as sassy and playful as her. We were like, let's check out the Muppets exhibit at the Museum of the Moving Image next weekend. And let me tell you, even after the beer wore off, I could still see how funny and smart she was. If anything, she was even more impressive once I was sober enough to catch on to the subtle sass in her words. 6 months later, I popped the question. A year after that, we tied the knot. That was 4 years ago, and here we are, still going strong in this marriage gig. Living in a big city ain't easy, but we both put in the effort. I knew Ash would sometimes pull late nights at the office, and she knew I had to hustle to meet deadlines or finish up some side articles. We tried to coordinate our subway rides and grab lunches together, but some days we only caught a glimpse of each other in the morning and maybe an hour or two in the evening. Still, we made sure to send weekend texts to keep in touch and never forgot important dates or anniversaries, even the silly ones like, "Yo, so it was like spillin' beer day and our first real date when I found out Ash was a total nerd when it came to museums. She was smart and knew her stuff without actin' all high and mighty. Then when we were hiking in the Adara, she was all tough and competitive, not even carin' about the bruises and scrapes she got from tryin' to keep up with me on the trail. As we dated, moved in together, got hitched, and started our life, she started showing me new sides of herself like her mysterious sense of humor, her softer side, and how much she cares. It was like she was giving me these parts of herself out of nowhere. At work, she's like a chameleon, adapting to any situation. She gets all feisty every Thursday night at Pierce Batman's weekly sit-downs. I noticed she's a bit of a predator. The company always books a back room at 3 Olives, a fancy spot in the financial district. It's got comfy burgundy chairs, hunting decorations, and boring British food that even the most posh folks find awkward. If you don't show up on Thursdays, especially with your partner, it shows you don't care about moving up in your career. So every Thursday night, I hung out with Ashley's work buddies at Financial Works, listened to the gossip from her office, and watched her schmooze with everyone. Her co-workers were mostly stuck-up ex-schoolmates, and a lot of their wives were fake blondes who studied art or teaching young kids in college and were hunting for rich guys. I tried to fit in, but talking about fancy bars and designer shoes made me want to die. Luckily, Martha, also known as Marty Hubble, saved me from that superficial nonsense. Winslow Hubble checked out the competition. Half of them looked alike. Pierce's wife is insatiable. My assumptions about her were completely wrong. One evening, though, Abby Van W. was talking about her husband's newfound obsession with curling, a Canadian game where granite discs are slid across ice. Martha interjected, "Is she really boasting that her high-class New England husband is dumping money into a game loved by Canadian rednecks?" I glanced over and saw Martha had this smug look on her face, like she had just thrown out some kind of test to see if I was cool or just another podunk hick. Inbreeding seems to be a thing around here, no matter if you're a BAS or a Rockefeller. I muttered back, "Yeah, it's a messed up game. Can't play polo if you're always looking the wrong way." We went to the races and I realized Marty was like a Martha Stewart type, driven as hell and had a dry sense of humor like that show, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Stewart, Martha Hubble and C.E. Petrosky both grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Pittsburgh, went to a good college, and ended up marrying a guy with a fancy Anglo-Saxon last name that was only slightly fancier than her Polish-Lithuanian one. She had a job at a famous publishing company where she was already successful, but everyone expected her to quit and start having kids. At Pierce Bateman's endless happy hours, Marty and I would always end up in a corner, trading clever jokes and banter. Me and Marty were just playing a little game called Nazi Haircut Bingo to kill some time. Basically, we were checking out all the different haircuts in the crowd, looking for ones that reminded us of Goering, Heydrich, GBL, or Hitler. We were at some fancy place like Three Olives, full of macho guys and fancy hair products. Let's just say there were plenty of targets to choose from. While Marty and I were quietly arguing, our spouses were mingling with the crowd. They each went their own way. Ashley, who was still paying off her student loans, spent most of her time sipping club sodas and using her charm and humor to flirt and hook up. So there were these dudes rocking some sick suits, and then there's Winslow who probably celebrated most of his birthdays at the yacht club or the golf course bar. He was just chilling, sipping on gin and tonics, cracking jokes with his old fraternity brothers. You could totally see the class difference. Ash was trying to fit in with Winslow's fancy lifestyle, but Winslow was just coasting along, knowing he had backup plans if he messed up. They say he's got a safety net if he fails. You know, we always ended up back with Mom, Dad, and a fat paycheck managing the family's money. Those were our Thursdays, swimming in the happy hour waters like a big old fish. Ash would start splashing around like a happy seal, while Marty and I sipped cocktails, watched shows, and gossiped like a couple of chill anemones. It wasn't exactly my idea of a good time, but Ash was happy and Marty was a blast, so I didn't really mind putting on a suit and entertaining my wife. Our marriage was like a tightrope act, with both of us trying to find balance. We were young, working our butts off at tough jobs, and our relationship was super important to us. It was like a mix of respect, compromise, and setting the stage for a successful future with a house, kids, and all that American dream stuff. It wasn't easy, but we put in the effort and made it work. Ashley could get a bit jealous, which I thought was ridiculous because she was gorgeous. But hey, I had my own issues too. Man, dealing with jealousy and FOMO in a city of 8 million people was just part of everyday life, like taking the subway or eating dirty water hot dogs. I couldn't believe my wife chose me out of everyone. It was weird how highly she thought of me. But the real issue was Ashley's idea of fairness at work. Her morals were flexible, which you need to survive on Wall Street. But in her personal life, she was all about doing the right thing, no matter what. When Ash felt like she was being treated unfairly, she didn't waste any time getting back at the person who wronged her. Her revenge was, in my opinion, sneaky, complicated, and downright evil. Here's how it usually went down. After Ash was sure she had been wronged, she would confront the person and argue her case, usually in a loud and serious way. A genuine apology or a few apologies, plus some kind of repentance, could make things right again. But if the person kept denying their guilt or didn't show enough remorse, that's when Ashley's inner vigilante would come out to play. On the outside, Ashley might seem calm and collected, but deep down, she was ready to unleash some serious payback. Arguments cooled off and everything went back to normal, but behind the scenes she was busy gathering evidence, making judgments, and calmly deciding on the punishment she thought was fair. There were no second chances, no delays, no one above her. When Ashley gave her final decision, she didn't need anyone else's approval to know she did the right thing. She didn't listen to anyone saying she went too far. I often wondered where Ashley's strong sense of justice came from. I figured it was just who she was. As a kid, when a young girl found herself dealing with 4 big brothers, standing up to them directly would have been tough. Complaining to her parents would have just gotten her called a tattletale, which was a serious insult in a house full of boys. I bet little Ashley came up with some clever ways to get back at her brothers and actually followed through with them. With 4 rowdy boys around, who would have thought the sweet little sister was capable of that? Maybe Ashley's early years as a rebel explain why her punishments were so effective. She always goes overboard with punishing people. For every pound of crime, she dishes out 1.5 pounds of punishment. Sometimes I wonder if she still sees herself as the weak little sister, always fighting with her older brothers. Maybe that extra 50% is her way of making us pay for her time as judge, jury, and executioner. For example, one Sunday a few months after Ash and I got married, we were cleaning up our messy apartment, getting rid of all the junk that had piled up in closets and corners, and sorting through clothes. We decided to donate our old college textbooks to Goodwill because, let's be real, we were never going to read them again. After we were done, our living room was a mess with bags and boxes everywhere. I was taking out the trash to the dumpster on the corner and to Goodwill down the block. Everything was going smoothly until we started thinking about all the new space we had in our closets and bookshelves. About 40 minutes later, I was chilling on the couch with a beer in hand, and Ashley was standing over me, practically shaking with anger. Turns out, I accidentally mixed up a bag that was meant for Goodwill. So, the dry cleaners disappeared, and when we realized it wasn't in the trash and Goodwill wouldn't let us search their warehouse, my wife was totally pissed off. She ended up taking her frustration out on me because apparently, I didn't check the bags properly when I brought them out of the apartment. Now, Ash is missing 3 dresses. I said sorry, but what else could I do? It was like trying to put out a massive fire with just a handful of water. After saying sorry for the 3rd time, I chugged the rest of my beer, told the missus I needed some space, and went for a long walk. When I got back a few hours later, there were 3 new dresses in the closet and Ash was knocked out. The next morning when I woke up, Ashley was nowhere to be found. I did my morning routine and started getting ready for work, but I hit a snag when I realized I couldn't find my pants, not in the closet, not in the laundry room, not even my suit pants. I texted Ash, "Hey babe, have you seen my pants? I can't find them." Her response: I rushed back to Goodwill to see if I could find something to wear, feeling super angry. After searching for a while, I managed to find a pair of dark sweatpants in my gym bag. They weren't perfect, but I was running late and they would do until lunchtime. When I got back home that night, I discovered 3 new pairs of pants in my closet. Ashley was watching me with a weirdly satisfied look in her eyes as I put them away. After that, I went for a walk because I couldn't stand being in the same apartment as her for another minute. In the end, I lost 3 dresses. Man, I was so confused and pissed off when Ashley made me sacrifice 12 pairs of pants, including my favorite suit pants, as some kind of divine punishment. I swear the punishment didn't fit the crime at all. It got me thinking maybe I messed up marrying her. It took a few days for us to get back on the same page. Ashley never said sorry, but my silent treatment seemed to get through to her. She started bringing home dinner from all my favorite spots for a few nights in a row. Last Wednesday I found a J. Crew and scored enough pants to last me a whole week. Then, at happy hour on Thursday at Pierce Bateman's, she greeted me with a big hug. It felt like old times. Besides teaching me to always be cautious when checking trash bags before taking them out, the pants incident taught me a valuable lesson about Ashley's revenge. While she seemed to get some sort of satisfaction from being a tool of payback, her actions didn't actually make her happy. She took revenge very seriously. Having to replace my 10 missing pairs of pants was more of a pain in the ass than a fun shopping spree. It cost me around $1,500, not including the incomplete suits I had to replace. It put a dent in our finances for a while, but my wife took it in stride, like it was a necessary expense to move forward. Ashley never brought up the missing pants again, but every now and then I'd notice this smirk on her face whenever I found something weird, like finding salt in my cereal or realizing the book I was reading mysteriously vanished. Eventually, I just accepted it as part of our relationship. I had my own weird habits, like insisting on keeping peanut butter in the fridge, and Ashley had her own quirks, like her obsession with getting revenge. But I figured, when you love someone, you take them as they are. I got used to saying sorry when needed, but I also didn't want to be scared of my wife all the time. Man, I was so mad sometimes that I just had to brace myself and wait for Caitlin to come storming through the apartment with her hurricane-force revenge. We had a good thing going, until she showed up. Let me tell you, I didn't even hire Caitlin, that decision came from higher up. They must have some crazy way of picking people, like drawing pentagrams and sacrificing goats. I was just in one of those review meetings where they decided to bring her in. She was way better at writing and meeting deadlines than the other candidates HR interviewed. They actually listened to our feedback, thanked us, and ended up hiring her. I was shocked they actually took our advice. Even though Caitlin had a great resume and I didn't help with the hiring process, Ashley wasn't impressed when they met at a work event. The issue was that she was. Wow, Caitlin is such a great writer and editor. I was surprised to see her and Ash chatting about girl stuff, like complimenting each other's running clothes and sneakers and talking about the weather. To someone else, it might seem like a normal interaction between a wife and her husband's coworker, but I could tell something was off by the look in Ash's eyes. When we got back to the apartment after lunch, Ash was unusually quiet. I knew she was brewing something up in her mind. Man, she was fuming and brewing, about to blow up. I knew I had to deal with this before I ended up going commando again. Luckily, I had just bought 7 new pairs of pants and hoped they would last me a while. I decided to speak up. I'm glad you finally met Caitlin, you two seem to be getting along well, I said. I guess so, she's pretty, my wife muttered. Where have you been hiding her, Charles? Oh, not a good sign. Take it easy, sweetheart, I said with a smile. We don't really hang out with my coworkers that much. Actually, I think this is the first time you've met half of them. Man, that was some bullshit. I saw all of them at the Christmas party. I had to keep a smile on my face even though that shit went down 8 months ago. Damn, half of the office has already bounced or found new gigs, like Caitlin getting hired on. She was all frowning about her qualifications, but she's got a degree from Brown University in English with a focus on business writing, plus 5 years of journalism and another 3 years in internet marketing. Pretty much the same as me, except for that fancy Brown degree. Looks like she might end up being my boss soon at this rate, but she was sounding a bit more chill by the end of our convo. She was as tense as a guard dog, ready for action. So you'll be working for her. I glanced back and saw her steely eyes, but she smiled. Thank goodness, I thought. Of course, my dear, I smirked back. You're the only woman I listen to, and I wouldn't call it work. Ash's grin widened even more. When we got back to our apartment, we jumped right into it. The next few weeks went smoothly, but it took a while for the tension to ease. Ash never brought up Caitlin, and I tried not to mention her either. I think it's pretty common for cheaters to never mention the other woman, but in my situation, I just didn't want to stir up drama. I thought I got away with it and dodged a bullet. Work was still going on as usual, at least until the end of October. Every year, my company puts out a big report summarizing our projects worldwide. No matter how hard we work or how many emails we send, the project managers and other organizations always wait until the last minute. Yo, gotta send in those reports so my team and I can get all the stuff we need to pull those early mornings, late nights, and missed weekends for a week or two. We call it Hell Week, but I mean it's not actually hell, you feel me? So when Hell Week rolled around, everything was finally starting to get back to normal. But then on that Monday, my usual 8-hour workday turned into a freaking 12-hour editing sesh. By the time I made it home, I was just barely holding myself together with rubber bands and duct tape. All I could think about was a hot shower and my comfy bed. No joke, man. Man, I was too tired to argue with Ashley. She attacked me as soon as I walked in and hadn't even taken off my coat yet. Where the heck have you been? She demanded. I stopped in my tracks and tore off one sleeve. Didn't you get my messages? You mean the message you sent like 6 freaking hours ago? I thought to myself. Had it really been 6 hours since I texted Ashley to say I'd be late for work? Honestly, I couldn't remember. Despite feeling groggy, I knew I had 2 options, get into a fight with Ashley and probably end up falling asleep on her. Hey, do you want to chill on the couch and try to calm things down before we hit the sack and pass out? It's been so long, I'm not sure. I took off my coat and was looking for a hanger in my wardrobe. Sorry, I lost track of time. She's tapping her foot, not a good sign. I'm pretty sure you did it, I exhaled. Remember when I said it was a crazy week? My team and I spent the whole day working on an annual report. Tap tap tap. Remember how I asked you to keep me updated about dinner plans? Yeah, sorry Ash, it was a mess. I couldn't stop checking my phone nonstop. It's gonna be like this all week, tapping away. Was she there? The whole team was there all day, including Caitlin. I told Ashley that I looked her in the eyes with all the sincerity I could muster. My eyelids felt like they weighed a ton. Ash, I'm sorry I didn't swing by to see you. I've been dealing with fires for the past 12 hours. And honestly, it's gonna be like this until we hit our deadline next Thursday, which is 8 days away. Remember last year when I had to work the entire weekend? I gotta do it again this year, I shrugged. I needed to hit the hay. I'm really sorry Ash, but it's just part of my job. It was part of my job even before Caitlin was hired, and it's gonna be part of my job again once she's gone. She's leaving. The tapping stopped. I chuckled dryly. You get it, right? Team members are always getting shuffled around and leaving. The only reason they haven't moved me to a different place is because they don't have anyone else to edit articles and manage the website, Ashley's. My eyebrows are furrowed again, but for now I'll keep working with her. Yeah, babe, I'm still working with Caitlin, Aaron, Kim, Jake, Brandon, and the rest of the team. That's all I do. We came to a compromise. Ashley agreed to calm down, and I agreed to reply to her messages quickly. She wanted instant responses, but I managed to convince her to give me 10 minutes of breathing room. It was a pretty standard compromise, but neither of us were thrilled about it. I felt like I had to wear an electronic leash during the toughest time. Last year, she was so jealous that we had to sort things out before going to sleep. She kept giving me this intense look all night. Our office apartment felt kinda peaceful, but I felt torn between dealing with Ashley's issues and the never-ending editing work. No matter how fast we worked, I knew we'd hit a breaking point soon, just like last year. But that was still a week away. In the meantime, Ashley was blowing up my phone with like 10 texts a day. So, this chick would pop up and distract me from my work, making me stop what I was doing to reply. Normally, I could just pause editing for a minute, but a few times she texted me during meetings and I had to quickly respond under the table, hoping nobody saw. Her texts were always basic, like "How are you?" or "Hope all is well," but it was clear she was keeping an eye on me. The timing was suspicious too. Sometimes she'd text me right after I got to the office, other times she'd wait for like an hour or something. Sometimes they would come one after another, and sometimes hours would pass in between. I got the feeling she was trying to catch me off guard, like playing Battleship with me. Meanwhile, Caitlin and I were sneaking off for a quick shag in a closet somewhere. It probably would have kept going like that for the rest of Hell Week, but I messed up. My phone charger at home was barely working. I had to stick the cord under the phone and pull it tight for it to work. It would have been an easy fix to just buy a new cord, but it happened during Hell Week. So, last week was a total nightmare between dealing with Ashley and the damn annual report. I barely had any brain cells left to handle any other problems. When I finally made it to the office on Friday morning, my phone was only at 7%. Normally, I would have plugged it in right away when I sat down at my desk. But before I could even take off my coat, Jake came rushing in with some urgent truck stuff and I had to jump right into work. By the time I took a breather, it was already noon and my phone had died. Looking back, I should have freaked out about being out of touch for hours, but I was too caught up in the chaos. I was with Ashley for 4 years and I could feel my heart racing and panic building up as the situation was getting out of control. When I plugged in my phone, it was dead low and took forever to charge. My heart was pounding in my ears as I waited for it to turn on. Finally, the phone made a quick vibrating beep and started downloading messages, followed by a bunch of vibrating beeps indicating more messages had arrived. The messages quickly went from, "Hey babe, what's up? I'm getting a little ticked off. Where the hell are you, Charles? You have 5 minutes to pick up your damn phone." I quickly dialed her number, but it went straight to voicemail. She was probably screening my calls. I tried again with the same result. On the third try, I left a message explaining the situation. I also sent a text with a brief explanation. Still no response. I sent another shorter message, but still no reply. At this point, I was torn between rushing to her office to explain myself and just giving up. Once I got back to work, I had to choose between keeping the peace at home or keeping my job. It was crucial to have a steady income to pay the rent after getting kicked out. I had to wait for my phone to charge for about half an hour after receiving a bunch of messages. There's no way I'm leaving my desk without my phone, it's like my lifeline. While waiting, I tried to focus on editing, but my mind was blank and my heart was still racing. I couldn't stop thinking about the situation. I couldn't control Ashley no matter what I did. Something wasn't right. Despite trying not to let my wife's temper and weird sense of justice take over, it did. I was in the middle of a super busy work week, unable to focus because I missed a few messages and feared my wife's wrath. Something just wasn't right, but I didn't know how to tell Ashley. I don't know how to say this, but I couldn't handle living in fear of her anger or let her desire for revenge ruin our marriage. I thought about texting her, but I knew we needed to talk about this in person, maybe with a therapist. As I was figuring out how to bring it up, she sent another message saying, it's okay, all right. But, damn, Ashley had been trying to make me feel guilty in the last 3 messages. It's definitely not okay, and it's hard to deal with. Trying to read between the lines, I figured Ash must have finally snapped and let me slide, or maybe she thought I did something wrong and was planning my punishment. Then it dawned on me that no matter what Ashley's letter meant, I was stuck. Going to her job was risky and trying to reason with her over text was a lost cause. I just had to sit tight and pray that once the dust settled, my marriage and reputation would be okay. Man, I was so looking forward to getting to the next chapter. I made a real effort to leave work early, but I didn't get home until 8:30 p.m. I was completely exhausted, just standing in front of my apartment door like I had been every night that week. I took a deep breath, composed myself, and walked inside. I'm home, honey. I called out from the kitchen. Her response sounded normal, so I tried to stay positive. Maybe things wouldn't be as bad as I thought. But her cheery tone made me a little worried. Why wasn't she more upset? Had she? Man, she's already plotting her revenge. I bet my dinner tonight is gonna be full of laxatives or some shit. After I hung up my coat and kicked off my shoes, I was ready to defend myself, but instead Ashley greeted me with a calm smile. She chirped, "Welcome home, sweetie," and hugged me. What the hell was going on? I was still on damage control mode. Hey, babe, sorry I missed your messages today. My phone died, I said, trying to explain. Don't worry about it, sweetheart, she said, but then went in for a kiss. No excuses, she added. Mistakes happen. I grabbed a new charger on my way home from work. Who was this woman and what had she done with my wife? Looking back, I probably should have investigated further, but it was almost 9 o'clock and I had just finished a 12-hour workday, barely avoiding a heart attack. I didn't want to stress myself out more, so I gave up with a sigh of relief. Thank you, Ash, I'll make sure to charge my phone tomorrow. She flashed a big smile again and said, I got it, babe. Ash and I agreed that she would take care of dinner during Hell Week. She placed an order. I ordered some Chinese food to go and snacked on it for a bit, but I was so tired from the day that I started dozing off at the dinner table. I should go to bed, I said. Are you coming? She just smiled at me and said, maybe in a little while. I'm going to do some reading. I managed to drag myself to the bathroom to freshen up, then crashed into bed. As I drifted off to sleep, I noticed a faint smell in the air, like it was coming from the fabrics or something. Before I could think about it too much, sleep took over. The next day was Saturday, but I had to go to work, so I got up, showered, and got dressed quietly. Before leaving the bedroom, I glanced over at Ashley lying in bed, all curled up in a ball and wrapped in those cozy yellow sheets. She looked so peaceful, like a completely different person. Not at all like the strong financial analyst in her fancy suit or the confident wife I saw the night before. Wait, confident. I felt my good mood disappear. I was like, nah, no need to stir up trouble where there ain't none. I convinced myself that my pants were still there, my clothes were all good, and there was no point in stressing about tomorrow when I already had a tough day ahead of me. But I couldn't shake off that look in her eyes, man. Ash only hit me up with 4 texts that day, and I made sure to reply fast. They were all chill and easy, no drama or cussing, and she seemed happy with my responses. When I got back home that night, everything seemed pretty normal, for the most part. So, we went to this Greek joint and she got some chicken with lemon. She usually gets takeout, but I didn't feel like arguing. I tried to see if she was happy by looking into her eyes, but I was too tired to tell if she was satisfied or not. Then, I caught a whiff of something funky in the bedroom. I asked her if she sprayed something, and she said she thought one of the neighbors was smoking. It was weird because usually we only smell weed in the hallway, not in our place. So I woke up Sunday morning and shrugged my shoulders, mystery solved. We got up at 6, showered, and got dressed in silence. I glanced over at Ashley all cozy in the bed with those pale green sheets, looking like a mermaid or something. Even though she was in a flannel nightgown, she still looked like a goddess. I gave her a kiss and headed off to work. Later, I realized the sheets were yellow on Saturday and green on Sunday. I just shrugged it off. We change the sheets pretty regularly, but we don't really have a set schedule for it. I guess Ashley just decided it was time for a change. Time to swap out the sheets that night. We had the usual grub from the diner around the corner. The breeze was nice and I got a solid night's sleep. Maybe it was the smug expression on her face the next morning, or the peaceful shower and quiet goodbye kiss from my wife. She was out like a light, all cozy on the white sheets. I was at work that day and couldn't figure out why Ashley would change the sheets 2 days in a row. The February breeze and her satisfied look made it seem like Ash was upping her game. Her revenge plan, if she was really doing what I suspected, wasn't just about hiding my pants. It seemed like she was trying to mess up our marriage for good. I hesitated for a second, questioning if I really wanted to uncover the truth. But then I realized I couldn't just ignore my suspicions. If they were true, I knew I couldn't stay with my wife. Without second-guessing myself too much, I did some digging and ordered a couple of spy cameras on Amazon for $126, with expedited shipping. I was already on my way when I hoped that my gut feeling was wrong that night. Moroccan takeout Phoebes and pink sheets were waiting for me, and the satisfied look was definitely there. I checked the laundry basket, but it was empty. On Monday, the editing work slowed down and the queue of stories started to get shorter. The end was near. At 11, the post office got word that my package had arrived. Work had slowed down a bit by noon, and my team barely noticed when I said I had to go to a meeting. The cameras were. So I set up these hidden cameras in my bedroom, disguised as a smoke detector and an alarm clock. It was super easy. Ash texted me 5 times that day at 5:15 p.m. Then I got a text saying the cameras were turned on because my wife came home early. An hour later, Ashley texted me for the last time that day. I was curious to know the truth, but if the video showed what I thought it did, then shit was about to hit the fan. I decided not to watch the video until the next day, just in case my marriage was doomed. I told Ash I'd be back at 8:30, but honestly, I didn't really give a crap if she was mad or not. I was feeling all sorts of foggy and numb. Got home at 8, barely made it in the door. Ordered some takeout pizza for Breeze, who looked pretty damn happy about it. We only got 4 sets of sheets, so it made sense that they were yellow again. And that's why we hit up the laundromat yesterday. As I crawled into bed, I realized I never want to smell Phoebe again, no matter what. Next morning, Ash was all cozy in bed, shining in the sunlight. I couldn't stop staring at her. I know I'll miss this feeling. Between not being able to sleep and feeling scared, I was still in a daze. But when it finally cleared, I realized I had a whole lot of pain waiting for me. Work has calmed down for the most part, but we still have 2 or 3 days left before we're done. Thankfully, we can see the light at the end of the tunnel. At 11 o'clock, I told the team I was heading to a quiet spot, a conference room that the company had set up. Man, there were couches, chairs, and a few little tables in there. It was basically like a fancy student hangout spot for work. It was also the only spot where I could sneak in some video watching from my room without being bothered. The only other person there was Kim, one of my coworkers. She was all cozy in a chair by the window, totally focused on her laptop. I plopped down on the couch at the other end of the room. If the videos turned out like I thought, I wanted my back against the wall. My plan was to just listen to the video, not really watch it. I figured it would be better if I didn't see Ashley in it. Another guy would totally make it hard for me to forgive her, and I didn't want to shut down any options until I figured out what was really going on. So I put on my headphones, played the smoke detector video, and made sure to hide the screen. It was just as bad as I thought it would be. The camera started recording when they walked into the room, and then I heard a familiar voice. It was Winslow, damn it. I was devastated, but also confused. I glanced up at the clock on the wall and just stared blankly at the dig. As the clock ticked, only 20 minutes had passed since the video started. I couldn't stop thinking about the number, repeating it over and over in my head. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. 20 minutes until the end of my marriage. In that moment, I knew I couldn't go back home that night, or any night in the near future. I had to face her, confront her about what she had seen. She already accused me of cheating, and was thirsty for justice. I had no idea how she would react. How do you even go about getting revenge in a divorce? What would people think? You added another 50% to it. The only problem was when to tell her. The angel on one shoulder decided to text her right away. He said that showing mercy was a fail, forgiveness was great, and I should let her know before she messed up with Winslow again. But the demon on my other shoulder said that just because I didn't want to punish her, didn't mean she couldn't punish herself. At 5:20 my phone buzzed. At 6:30 p.m. I texted her with some video clips and told her I was crashing at Aaron's place, a guy from work. 2 days later, I decided to file for divorce. In the next chapter, I realized I couldn't stand Winslow Hubble anymore after talking to Marty and hearing gossip during happy hour. I saw how his money and fancy connections always protected him over the years. Basically, Vinny's rich friends from prep school, frat brothers, and his dad's money always bailed him out. I looked into all the ways I could get back at him and figured out that going after him directly wouldn't work because of his parents. I was worried that the consequences would completely ruin me, and maybe Ash Winslow, on the other hand, would just keep living carefree, oblivious to the damage he was causing. It bothered me. How do you punish a guy who has it all? As I lay in bed at night, I couldn't shake Winslow's words from the video about me being a kiss-ass and him being better than me. He needed to know he was better. And then it hit me, I had something to learn from Winslow. It would take time and a lot of digging, but screw it. I stopped chilling at home with him at night, so I hit him up 6 months later. Winslow agreed to link up at the Three Olives, where they throw parties on Thursdays. I did all the things I knew I shouldn't have, picked a spot that Winslow knew well and would make him feel comfy. I showed up 5 minutes late to give him time to grab a seat and order a drink. I thought he'd be rocking one of those fancy suits his parents tailor-made for him, so I went with some casual pants, a blue jacket, and a white plaid shirt. He was all clean-cut and neat, so I decided to mess up his hair a bit and not bother getting rid of my stubble. Winslow thought he was better than me, and I was determined to prove him right. When I got to the table, Winslow was dressed exactly how I expected, a fancy tie, pinstriped suit, expensive shirt from Brooks Brothers, and cuff links. He looked me up and down, probably picturing himself as the one in charge at a fancy bar. For big dudes are sitting across from the guy I beat. He thought he was untouchable, just like I wanted him to. He didn't stand up to greet me. "Winslow," I said as I took off my backpack and sat down. Chucky grinned. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has been a while." "Just give me a sec," I signaled for the waitress and gave her my order as Winslow stared at me. Apparently, us lower-class folks shouldn't disrespect our elders by ordering a gin and tonic. When she left, I turned back to him. "Wendy, thanks for coming." He blushed at the nickname. "I do." "Sorry, but I don't have a lot of time," he snapped. "Why am I even here, to be honest?" He grinned as he spun the martini glass in his hands. "I thought the divorce would take care of that." "Yeah, it definitely put an end to things between me and Ash," I nodded in agreement. "But you and I still have some unfinished business," Winslow chuckled. "I can't imagine what that would be." "Your wife has decided to try out another man," he smirked. "A better man that you just couldn't resist." "Why should I?" "Ashley is a stunning woman," his eyes sparkled. "She is simply amazing. In the bedroom, she said you weren't giving her what she needed. We'll talk about that later. When I found out about you two, I thought about getting back at you. Ashley's situation was easy, we got divorced and I haven't seen her since. We had a great marriage, but she messed it all up. She'll have to deal with that. I took a drink and thought about it. But you, on the other hand, are a tougher nut to crack. What exactly do you mean? Here's the deal, Fluffy, you're safe, just assume they'll do the obvious. I'll mess you up real bad, he said, eyes wide as he cautiously lifted his hands off the table. I have no doubt I could do it, and I bet it'd be a blast. But I'll barely have time to clean the blood off my hands before your folks have me locked up. I glanced down at my hands in his lap. Plus, you're probably the kind of wimp whose mom and dad make you carry a panic button. If that's the case, I'll be lucky to get a few hits in before the security guards take me down. Winston groaned and he slammed his hands down on the table and took a big gulp from his glass, like he was trying to intimidate me. But nah, I ain't scared. Maybe I'll just save up some cash and hire a real pro to make you vanish. I tried not to smirk at the look on his face. I had to act all serious, but then I realized I'll have the same problem. Your folks will probably hire a bunch of detectives and I'll have to stress about any evidence my hired gun leaves behind. He'll mess up eventually, get caught, and come after me. I'm screwed this time. I'm looking at a murder charge and now I have a lot less money for my legal defense. Why not just leave it at that? I'm pretty sure I could. I cut him off. I've been thinking about getting revenge. I could send a video of you to all your friends, parents, and colleagues. Winslow started to look sick. But what's the point? Your parents already know what you're really like. They've been covering for you for years. And once mom and dad find out about my plan to ruin your reputation, I think I'm about to get fired from my job, so I'll probably end up working somewhere asking, do you want fries with that? Winslow was like, so you're just gonna leave it like that? Not exactly. I pulled out a folder from my backpack and placed it on the table. I figured out one thing I could do, but first, check this out. Have you ever thought about how much your parents protected you? Nah, I don't think so. When I was planning my revenge, I took some photos from the folder and laid them face down. I did a ton of research and it's crazy what you can find when you have a lot of time and a never-ending amount of determination. Remember Mary Gray and Daniel Brennan Winslow? Winslow's face turned red with surprise but he tried to stay calm. I don't remember, he said. I might have met them in college. I scoffed, don't be humble, Winnie. You did way more than just meet them. In fact, you're the reason they dropped out and went back home. I flipped over the first picture. It showed a pale woman with black hair holding a toddler. Hey, maybe this will jog your memory. Mary popped out the baby about 6 months after she finished high school. The kid definitely takes after you, well, at least before he slimmed down. And hey, good news, Mary actually graduated from a community college, at least that's what she's bragging about on Facebook. They seem to be doing okay, he chuckled nervously but was sweating bullets. You can't prove this baby is mine, he stuttered. Don't stress, Mary won't rat you out. But on the flip side, young William might. He had to sign some papers saying he wouldn't spill the beans, and his DNA is solid evidence that he's the father. I looked at him skeptically. I wouldn't count on a future in politics. Winslow's face turned red and he started to act all rigid. So this is your way of getting back at me, huh? He whined. Just wait and see, Winnie. We're just getting started. I turned over the other picture. This one wasn't so cheery. The woman in it had blonde hair, sad cheeks, and haunted eyes. It was tough dealing with Danielle. Actually, I only managed to talk to her parents about it. It looks like after she finished high school, she got really down and almost tried to off herself. He looked really scared when I mentioned it. There's no way you can blame me for all that. Well, you and some of your frat buddies, of course. There's no evidence, it just disappeared somehow, and she seems to have signed some kind of agreement to keep quiet. But we both know what you guys did to her. He pushed back from the table like he was scared the pictures would set him on fire. You can't prove Jack, not in court. I just stared at him until he cracked. Come on, we both know what you did, Vinny. You know she hasn't been with anyone since you. She's scared to go out, like her mom says. She still wakes up screaming. Winslow jumped up, moving faster than we thought he could. I don't have to put up with this, he hissed. I'm outta here. Not so fast, I said, pulling a flash drive out of my pocket and tapping it on the table. Sit down, Vinny, I snapped. Finish your drink, order another one. We still have a lot to talk about, and you have a lot more to lose. Go. Tell that to my boss, he laughed, he sounded like he was high or something. He'll pass it on to Marty, she won't let it go. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe you want to talk to Danielle, but of course, she doesn't go by that name anymore. I stared at him hard. Your parents really scared her good. When he finally sat down, he said, you have 10 minutes, under his breath. He loosened his tie and undid the top button, his collar was all sweaty. Cut the crap, he said. I've got all the time in the world, because you've got a lot to lose, just like me. I caught his eye and he turned away. Hey, don't leave so soon. We're just getting started. When I saw how he was breathing, almost crying, I couldn't help but think of Ash for a second. I wondered if she felt the same way. As she started to retaliate, I could see how someone could get hooked on it. Taking a deep breath, I continued. It's funny you brought up your job, Whitney. You're right, they wouldn't fire you for Mary and Danielle, or even Ashley, even though it would be really bad. Unlike you, she actually needs a job and she's not untouchable. If your little fling got out, she'd be screwed while you'd walk away unscathed. I mean, unless you robbed a bank, you'd probably be at Pierce Bateman until they had to carry you out on a stretcher. What are you even talking about? He crossed his arms, trying to look tough, but it was clear he was just trying to hide his soft side. Winslow wouldn't stand for that. You know that shady business with the gin and tonic, right? Remember that gold farb account? You ended up losing $500,000 because of some mistake that even an intern could have caught. Ever wonder why you didn't get canned for that? Brave tried to play innocent, blaming it on the secretary. Yeah, the secretary took the fall for it. Turns out she got a reward for it and a great reference. She's actually working at Babbitt and Gallup now. I was so pumped, man. All right, Chucky, he kept going. If you're so smart, then tell me why I didn't get fired. Did he really not know? I could tell by his expression, isn't it obvious? Vinny, who always has your back, who always bails you out. Don, I could see a glimmer of realization in you, that's it, you've got it. I saw another part of Winslow Hubble break off. No, they didn't. Would you be shocked to learn that your folks dumped $30 million into their Pierce Bateman account just a week after the Goldby story? He looked at me with anticipation. Scary stuff, huh? And on top of the $150 million they already have, he stuttered, saying they never had it. I'm telling you, they pay your salary, Vinny, through all sorts of fees like brokerage commissions, transaction fees, profit-sharing fees, and who knows what else. I bet your parents even slip Pierce Bateman a little something extra just to keep you around. I handle some of the biggest accounts at the firm. I couldn't help but laugh, he had no clue. Come on, you just shuffle papers around for some of the most important accounts at the firm. I'm sure someone's watching over you, too. Make sure you don't screw up big time. You're basically Batman's top intern, but let's be real, most of the secretaries there have riskier jobs than you. I'm the freaking boss around here. He said loudly, your wife answers to me. I spoke softly, like talking to a child or a wounded animal. You'll be VP as long as your folks keep supporting Pierce Batman. If they shell out enough cash, you might even climb up to senior VP or CEO. But let's face it, you'll always just be a fancy paper pusher. Listen up, pal. I took a sip, and I'm willing to bet that all she did was forward a few emails to someone more important. He gave me a smirk, claiming he could seduce my wife. What a jerk. That's the arrogance I've been waiting for. I glared at him, which seemed to piss him off. And now, let's get to the important part. Are you ready, Winslow? You entertained my wife in my own bed. How many times was it? 4, 5, 6. And then I put my foot down. How many more times? How many times has Winslow's face fallen since then? It's been a year and a half of winning. How many times has my ex-girlfriend taken you back into her bed? It was after the divorce, she claimed she didn't want to cause more drama. You can't be that naive, Winnie. We've been divorced for a year, and we were living apart for a year and a half. I laughed at him. Besides, the water was crystal clear. Mr. Plum, I have a video showing you two in my bedroom, in the conservatory, with a candlestick. Ever since I moved out, you've been partying every night and hooking up twice on Saturdays. The only reason you're not still with her is because she can't stand your chubby self anymore. Screw you, you jerk, he yelled. She loved what I did to her. I was way better than you, I thought to myself as I slouched in my chair. Then I realized something odd while watching you two together. Hey Winnie, you sure do bring me up a lot, I said. He looked puzzled. What do you mean? I showed him a video where he kept talking about me. You're obsessed with me, man, I said. She was breathing fast. I laughed. That's just how it is. You said it a few times in the video too. Okay, here's the deal. When most guys meet a hot girl, they can't stop talking about her. But when you're in a room with Ashley, you start talking about me. Like I was the one winning. I shake my head. Jesus. No surprise they had you working as an intern. Doesn't that seem weird to you? It seems weird to me. He covered his ears with his hands. Stop calling me Winnie, you worthless jerk. He looked like he. After he finished running a marathon, he was gasping for air like he was about to cry. He hunched over, eyes shut, hands still over his ears. I glanced at the waitress, chatting with a guy in a suit, probably the manager. I signaled for the bill. I ain't paying, he grumbled. I ain't saying nothing, Vinny. I'm just telling you what I saw, what you'll see in the video. He looked stunned. It's not a big deal, Winnie. It's like, blondes or something. Hey ladies, just accept it and move on with your life. I'm not here to listen to any whining. I don't judge, at least not in this situation. I finished my drink and put it on the floor. What about the rest of it? A kid without a dad, lives destroyed, marriages falling apart, fake jobs, all funded by mommy and daddy. Yeah, I definitely judge you for that. His face looked all puffy and red, sweat dripping down. His tie was a mess and his eyes were begging. What about the video? You're not gonna give it to Marty, right? I couldn't help but burst out laughing. Marty already has the video, Winnie. Yo, I gave her a copy of this as soon as the divorce was done. Here's yours. I passed him the flash drive across the table. But she hasn't said a word, not even one, Wendy. I ain't trying to figure out why Marty stuck around with you or why she even came to you in the first place. I have no clue what shady deal she made to get out of Pittsburgh, and I ain't gonna judge her. I pulled out a second flash drive from my pocket. Maybe she stayed with you out of loyalty and love, or maybe it was just 'cause you. Yo, so the prenup says she's gonna get $500,000 if she sticks around with you for 5 years. Your anniversary was like 2 weeks ago, right? He was like, yeah, I'm not great with dates. Anyways, congrats on the milestone and wishing you many more happy years together. Oh, before I forget, here's a second disc for you. It's a video I put together, we'll call it Chucky and Mrs. X. Her face is blurred out so you can't see it, but I think you'll know who it is. Yo, her voice was like, I stopped and grabbed my backpack, or maybe not. She'd be making a lot of noise, like moaning and screaming. Thanks for tuning into today's stories. If you liked what you heard, hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a comment below with your thoughts on what went down. Take care.